Hello. If you clicked this video, you probably have read the title, so you should know what you're getting into. So let's just get right into it. The first setting is in character configuration, and by the way, everything is in character configuration in this video, and it's standard and legacy movement types. So standard movement type is a very similar movement type to most MMOs. If you've played at MMOs before, you probably know what standard is like. You can turn your character like this, you can walk backwards, you can strafe with E and Q, you can move forward. It allows precise movement. Personally, I'm not used to standard. I use legacy. Although there is a lot of people who do use standard and do praise it, I personally prefer legacy, as it allows more freedom in my movement, so I can just move left and right, just like this, back and forth. I don't really have to think about it. If you struggle with dodging AoEs, I would recommend legacy. Some people do like standard more, and maybe that's why I'm not good at this game, because I don't use standard. Either way, legacy is probably the way to go if you're getting into this game, but just try both of them out and see which one you prefer. Next, let's go over targeting types. So we have two things here. We have auto target according to priority and your tab targeting. So first we'll go over auto target according to priority. So we're going to have this disabled for now. Let's go over to the striking dummy here and click our action. We're not going to attack it at all. Now let's go over to this setting and click it on. Now we're going to click it without having the target dummy selected, and as you can see, we're attacking the target dummy and we don't even have it selected. Of course, it does select it when we press an action, but other than that, we don't have it selected. So in my opinion, this is overall a better setting to have. There is two options to it. You can have closest range or line of sight. Personally, I prefer closest range. Now, if you're a job that has an AoE and you are AoEing a pack and your AoE mob dies, then for a split second, you don't have an enemy targeted, then this can be a DPS loss. So having this enabled will prevent that issue from ever happening. Overall, I don't see any real disadvantage to having this enabled, other than you might accidentally pull ahead of your tank if you're too hasty with pressing your button, so just be aware of doing that. Next thing is your tab targeting types. So ignore depth is the default one. This will target everything here. As you can see, it targets all of it. Now, if I was to do cone instead, this will do a cone in my camera angle. So if I was to do this, but still have this in sight, it shouldn't target this one, all things considered. So if I was to cycle through, as you can see, it's targeting all of them except this one here because it's not in my cone. This is a cone, by the way. It's in the name. So if I was to go back to ignore depth, this should now be targeted in the tab. As you can see, it always gets targeted in the tab. So ignore depth will target everything. It will cycle through everything no matter what. Cone will only target things in a cone in your camera angle. So this allows more controlled tab targeting, and this just allows you so you can tab target through everything without having to change your camera angle. Complete personal preference to which one you prefer. Next, we have ground targeting types. Now, this is still in target settings here, and it's limit ring movement here, and press action twice to execute. So both of these are pretty important in my opinion. So limit ring movement is really good. We're going to actually disable them for now, and we're going to show you what it looks like without them. So if we were to use Sakuchi on Ninja here, it goes purple here. That means you can't use it here, okay? And when it goes orange, you can use it. Okay, great. Also, if I was to press Sakuchi again, it would just redo the Sakuchi. It's not actually letting me do anything, if that makes sense. It's not letting me go over here. So we're going to go back into settings here, and we're going to enable both of these. So limit ring movement to targeting range, and press action twice to execute. So now we're going to use Sakuchi, and it's only allowing us to go as far as the ring will allow. It's not going purple now. So if I was to put my mouse all the way over here, right? All the way over here, and press the action, it'll do it as far as it can take me. Also, the other option that I changed will allow me to not only click to use Sakuchi, but also just press the keybind to use Sakuchi. So if I was to also go over here and not click, but instead just press the keybind again, it will allow me to just use Sakuchi by pressing the keybind again. So this is really good if you're like me. Sometimes you click and it doesn't actually go off. Then you have that kind of backup option to just click the keybind again. Both of these settings, I see no reason not to have them. There is no disadvantage to having these enabled. So again, I do just recommend clicking both of these on. It's going to help you out a bunch. Next, let's go over battle effects. Now, we go over to character here, and we have battle effects here. So personally for myself, I have show all because I like all the flashy animations, and this is a Final Fantasy game, so I like all the VFX is being shown for my character personally. For other people, I don't particularly care, so I have them all on show limited. Now, if I was to have them all on show all and I was to do a raid, or even worse, an alliance raid, I would barely be able to see what the boss is doing because all the visual clutter and everyone using all their pretty animations would just completely cover the boss in VFX. So I have show limited on here. Now, the reason I have show limited is so I can still see beneficial effects. So if I was to go on to show none, for example, and, just say that everyone is show none, and if I was to use a beneficial effect like, I don't know, Dark Knight Salted Earth, I wouldn't even be able to see it. So if I was tanking and I forgot where my Salted Earth was, probably wouldn't happen. But I can't see it anymore, so I don't even know where my Salted Earth is. Now, this is the same for if I was to play a White Mage, for example, and I was to use Asylum, and I can't even see where the Asylum is. Even though it's huge and it'll probably be hard to not be in, I still can't see where the Asylum is at all. So this is pretty bad. I kind of want to see where Asylum is. So I want to have everyone to be at least show limited, and maybe myself be show all. This way I'll be able to see the beneficial effects. So I can see the Sacred Soil here. So I can see if I'm in it or if I'm out of it. So overall, I would recommend at least having everyone else be show limited, and maybe yourself show all if you like the effects. By default, all of this will be on show all, so it's going to be a rough time if you're new to the game and you enter your first alliance raid and you can barely see what's going on. So I do recommend just having show limited here. Next, let's go over clicking options. So character configuration, mouse settings here, and this will be on by default. So this one here is if I select this target dummy, and then if I click off it, it'll click off it. So I like to change my camera angle with left click, and I like to hold it down. Sometimes I get lazy and don't hold it down and accidentally click off the enemy. That's not good because then I have nothing to hit, and sometimes I don't notice it, and that can be a bad time. So I personally like to have this disabled. So with it disabled, I cannot click off the enemy anymore. So if I try to click off here, I can't do it anymore. It's not possible. And the only way to click off the enemy is by either clicking on another enemy or clicking on a party member like myself, or clicking escape. That also works too. So if it's a stillness mechanic and you want to stop attacking an enemy or a pyretic or whatever, then you can just spam escape and you'll be fine. The next option I would like to go over is changing your camera angle on the fly. As far as I'm aware, this can only be done on mouse and keyboard. To do this, you hold Control and either press down or up on the arrows on your keyboard. Now this is going to allow you to see a lot of the area, and you can change it however you want. Really good. It's kind of like a built-in zoom hack, not like we use any of those naughty tools. And you can also change this in the general options here. Just go to general here, into character, and just go down here. So if you did mess around with it and you want to change it back to how you like it, you can do that here. The next thing I'd like to go over is status effects and defining your party list. So we're going to go to character configuration here, and we're going to go to UI settings and party list here. Now there's a few things we can do. We can display party list. You obviously always want to display a party list, but you can hide the party list while solo or not. It's up to you. Now the main thing here is status effect icon display here. You can have minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10. Personally, I like 10. I like to see as much as possible. It can get a bit cluttered, but it's just how I play. Now, if I played Sage here, this has probably got the most stuff in the game. You can pretty much see everything here. It's all there. If I was to lower this to 5, you see it drastically reduces the amount you can see here. The next thing is defining your party list. So if you were to play a tank, you would always have tanks at the top, healers below, and DPS at the bottom. If you were to play a healer, you can change this to have healers at the top, tanks below, and then DPS at the very bottom. And if you were to play DPS, you could change it so DPS at the very top, tanks in the middle, and then healers at the bottom. Personally, I prefer to just have all of it the same because I'm a tank main, and I just always have tanks at the top, no matter what. I'm too used to it. But you can change this however you seem fit. It just helps with a bit of visual clarity depending on what you do. You can also go even further and specify what you want at the very top. So maybe you always want White Mage at the very top, and then Astro at the bottom, so you have both your regen healers always at the top, and then you have both of your barrier healers always at the bottom here. Makes sense, right? While we're in UI settings, let's go over to HUD layout here, scroll all the way to the bottom, and let's make sure this is ticked. By default, this won't be ticked, so display target's remaining HP percentage. And now when we hit a dummy, we're going to see the HP percentage of the dummy here. If we were to not have this ticked, guess what's going to happen? It's not going to display the percentage, which kind of sucks. We want to see the percentage. It's going to help with just knowing how close something is to dying, and It can also help with pushing a boss past a certain percentage and knowing if you've met the enrage or not. It's just nice to keep on top of how much percentage enemies have, and it doesn't really take much room, so I do just recommend having this on. Next, let's briefly go over some hotbar settings. So we go to character configuration, we go hotbar settings here, and we have display recast timers. Very important, by the way. So if we were to not have this enabled and we were to use blood weapon, we don't have a timer here. We just have the highlight that it's slowly going around. If we were to enable this, we now see a timer here, 51 seconds. If we were to go here, we have two options here. We have bottom left, which makes the timer a little bit smaller, and it's 45 seconds. And if we were to go centered, it makes the timer centered a bit bigger, and now we can see 40 seconds. Personally, I prefer centered. It just helps my eyesight. I don't have to squint so hard. But if you have pretty good eyesight, you can always have bottom left if you prefer. Either way, I definitely do recommend having this on because it just allows you to know precise timings on when your cooldowns are back up for certain mechanics and such. Also, while we're here, let's make sure we actually hide unassigned slots, because if we're playing something like White Mage, who has only 2 buttons, then you're going to see a bunch of this stuff here. You don't need to see this stuff, so you may as well hide those unassigned slots. You don't need to see those. Next, let's go over some color coordination stuff. So if we go into character configuration, display name settings here, and now we can change the colors of a bunch of stuff. We can change the colors of myself, companions, pets, other players, party members, alliance members, other NPCs, even friends. We can do all that here. So if I want to change the color of myself, I can do that here. So as you can see, this dummy is yellow. That is the default. And when I engage it, it turns blue. By default, it's going to be red for you. You can change this to whatever color you want. I can make it this pink. I can make it this green. I can make it whatever I want. Just down to personal preference and whatever you want the enemies to be highlighted. We can also go over to general here, and there is a nice little neat option here. We can display job icons next to a player's name. We can have 2 options for this. We can have this classic one or this new one. And we can also apply colors depending on a player's role in a duty. So for tanks, we can have all the tanks always be blue. We can have healers always be green. And we can have DPS always be red. This is really nice when you're doing party finder and stuff like that. And you just kind of want that visual clarity on where your tanks are, where your healers are, and where your DPS are. Personally, I really like this option. It's not a game changer, but it can be overall pretty good. Another setting that can be really nice is if we were to go to character configuration, go to log window here, and we have display error message when action fails, display recast timer error message when the recast timers fail. And what this is going to do is if we were to just like try and hit this dummy and we're too far away, it would say target not in range and it would spam this, okay? It would just do this. Pretty annoying, right? So we can get rid of that by just unticking both of these. And now it doesn't do anything, which is going to be great for your own sanity. So I definitely recommend just turning both of those off. And now let's get rid of those pesky, massive summons summoners do. No, it's not other summoners that are taking all of your screen. It is you. And you can change this however you want. So, defaultly, your pet sizes are going to be on medium here. This is going to look like this. I'm going to summon Titan, and you can see he's pretty damn big. It's going to take up a lot of clutter. So, what we can do is we can type up a pet size all small, just like that. Now, if we summon Garuda, she's going to be pretty damn small. She's not really taking up much room at all. Now, if you're really spicy and want to go with pet size large, that is also an option if you really want to do that. So I'm going to summon Ifrit, and he's pretty big. He's just as big as he is in the trials, so that's pretty big. It's going to take up a lot of room. If you're into that, go for it. But personally, if you play Summoner or if you play with Summoners, I would honestly go small. This is personal preference, but if you want to actually see mechanics happening, then I would suggest setting that to small. And there is one more option which can really help with when you lose your mouse, and it's this. See that? That's pretty cool, right? That's if you lose your mouse. If you somehow manage to lose your mouse and you don't know where it is, you can press a button here and it does a sonar. Now to do this, you go to keybinds here, you go to system, you scroll down a little bit, and it's right here. You have mouse sonar. You can set this to any keybind you want. Personally, I set this to my scroll wheel button. And by doing so, I can now just always find my mouse, no matter what. Now, if you're a G-poser like me and you're like, well, how do I get my G-pose menu up now? Well, the way you can do this is, for some reason, G-pose menu is actually locked to auto run. So auto run is also on the R keybind. So if you need that, you can just press R to do that instead, and you still have your mouse sonar. Anyway, that'll be a wrap for this video. If you're wondering, haven't you already made a similar video to this, Azu? Yes, I have, but there has been new information out, and I need to make content somehow. And also, I've just been thinking about rebooting some of my old content, re-releasing it into one package, so it's less videos spread out across my channel, and it's less confusing to find things. Either way, thanks a lot for your time, and thank you always to my Patreons as well. If you would like to become a Patreon, more information in the description below. But other than that, I wish you well, and make sure to subscribe. Bye-bye.